In a shocking video, the Daily Telegraph reports Pfizer did not know whether COVID vaccine stopped transmission before rollout, executive admits. Well, the executive must be wrong because the politicians are always right and not the science or the doctors, or I guess the science is always right. And you got to trust your doctor and go to your doctor. But the politician said, okay, I got to be honest with you guys. I have no idea what to tell you. I do know that big tech is censorious. I know that the federal government of the United States was reaching out to big tech platforms to get people banned and suspended if they dared challenge the science. And now we have this. I don't know. I'm going to tell you this. After everything is said and done, talk to a trusted medical expert, a medical doctor, nurse practitioner, or otherwise, who can tell you about what you should do for your health, because I certainly don't know. And I mean that completely and genuinely. I'd love to tell you definitively what the vaccine does, but I don't think even they know. I'm talking about Pfizer, of course. At a parliamentary hearing, a Pfizer exec said that they had to work at the speed of science and just get this out. And now the story's going viral, and there's even some people apologizing. The big narrative at the height of COVID was that if you got the vaccine, you would slow the spread, you would stop transmission. I've got a video I'll show you of all of these people like Fauci saying, if you get the vaccine, you won't get this. Now they're saying it doesn't prevent transmission, or at the very least, they don't know. I don't know. Maybe they're wrong. Talk to a doctor. If you don't think your doctor knows about what's going on, if they can't tell you about the modern developments, like the most up-to-date information, just find a good doctor, find a better one. Obviously, I say it all the time. Joe Rogan found a good one. I obviously found a good one. And so maybe the issue is there's good and there's bad doctors. Now, I also point out that YouTube changed their rules. The CDC contradicts what even Pfizer is saying. So you pick, I guess. At the very least, you can bring this information to your doctor and say, which is it? The CDC says the vaccines will prevent transmission or stop it or whatever. Pfizer says they don't know. YouTube has removed the rules on vaccine and transmission. Now YouTube just says the vaccine prevents serious illness or death. Now, I've pulled up a scientific study which basically says that as well. And this goes back to February, where they're saying, we don't know anything about transmission. I don't know, man. Let me just read for you the news, and then we'll leave it to. I'll read you the news. Now, I want to stress a few important points. We have this from NewsGuard. DailyTelegraph.com.au has a rating of 92.5 out of 100. This is an executive at Pfizer speaking to a government official. YouTube, if you have a problem with this, then I have a problem with you. And maybe, in the event that YouTube takes issue with this, we can settle it in court as to what YouTube's policies actually are. Because if I'm reading you the news and showing you what the executives who are producing this vaccine actually have to say about it, then what misinformation is there? Does YouTube know better than Pfizer, who made the vaccine? No, they don't. So you want to argue about misinformation? Let's play that game. Because I'm going to play you this video right now from the Daily Telegraph. Let me just play you the clip that's going viral. 45 seconds.
Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market.
I'm gonna start over. Make sure.
The Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market? If not, please say it clearly. If yes, are you willing to share the data with this committee? And I really want a straight answer, yes or no, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunisation before it's entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market. And from that point of view, we had to do...
One more time.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunisation before...
Immunisation? Is that what you said?
Did we know about stopping immunisation before it's entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market. And from that point of view, we had to do everything.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. The story says... A senior Pfizer executive has admitted that the drug company did not know whether its COVID vaccine prevented transmission of the virus when it began rolling out the shots globally. Janine Small, Pfizer's president of international developed markets, was testifying before the European Union Parliament on Monday when she was asked the question by Dutch MEP Rob Roos. He says, if not, please say it clearly. If yes, are you willing to share the data? Ms. Small, appearing in the place of Pfizer chief executive Albert Bourla, who had been called to testify but pulled out of the hearing earlier the month, replied the company had to move at the speed of science. Regarding the question, did we know about stopping the immunization before it entered the market? So I think she misspoke. They put sick there, implying an error. The question was about transmission. We had to really move at the speed of science, blah, blah, blah. Ms. Small said Dr. Bourla actually felt the importance of what was going on in the world, and therefore, as a result of that, we actually spent US $2 billion at risk of self-funded money from Pfizer to be able to research, develop, and manufacture at risk to be able to make sure that we're in a position to help people with the pandemic. Mr. Roos shared a brief clip of Ms. Small's response on Twitter describing the answer as scandalous. Millions of people worldwide felt forced to get vaccinated because of the myth that you do it for others, he said in the video, which has been viewed more than 5 million times. Now this turned out to be a cheap lie. Whoa. Mr. Roos said the admission removed the entire basis for vaccine mandates and passports, which led to massive institutional discrimination as people lost access to essential parts of society. I find this to be shocking, even criminal. In the early stages of the global rollout, drug makers and public health authorities claimed the shots would prevent transmission of the virus. Do they have a source on that? Let's pull up that. Let's see what they say. With Dr. Bourla stating in April 2021 that early trial data showed its vaccine was 100% effective against severe COVID-19. Full stop. Come on, they're playing games. They didn't say that effective against severe COVID. Against severe COVID? Yeah, he's telling you that it prevents hospitalization and severe illness. That quote does not say prevents transmission. This is what I think people may have fell victim to is assumptive language. You play a game, you say things that make people assume something. So here's a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that we've been working really, really hard playing the lottery every single day, hoping that one day we would win the $1 million. Well, I have huge news. Today, we won the lottery, baby. Woo! And then everyone cheers. Sounds like I just said I won $1 million. I never said that. I said we were hoping to win $1 million. Then I said we won the lottery. Yeah. I got a couple numbers right. It was $2, but I won the lottery. Assumptive language. It's a manipulation trick. It's a con. You say something like, we have been working tirelessly on testing this product. We want to make sure and we want to understand how to prevent transmission. And I can say that the data we have now shows the vaccine is 100% effective against severe COVID-19. I didn't say what you think I said. You see the point. Now, look, I'm not going to pretend to know anything about the science behind the vaccine because I ain't a doctor, nor a scientist, nor a researcher at Pfizer. I can only tell you that these quotes from these executives contradict themselves. You want to take care of your health, you got to do it on your own time, your own dime. You got to talk to doctors. There's a lot of health channels and everything that want to tell you what you should do with your life. I remember the story of Steve Jobs. He had pancreatic cancer, so he starts eating nothing but fruit. No, for real. I guess he went on like an all-fruit diet. Dude died. Now, I don't know. People say chemotherapy is bad and all that stuff, but I got to be honest. Maybe he would have been better off than just eating a bunch of fruit. Honestly, I have no idea. But maybe he did chemo. Look, I don't know what the guy did with his health. I think you got to talk to your doctor. That's all I'll say it 1,000,000 times. My point here is they're mentioning in this story the authorities claims shots would prevent transmission, but then give us a quote on something else. I don't know who's trying to manipulate me, and this is why I don't like playing games with this stuff. Why is the news outlet giving me a quote about severity of COVID, but making a claim about transmission? It's also possible that these quotes came from Pfizer in response, and they were the one using assumptive language, saying something like, we're working really hard to figure out the efficacy in preventing transmission. And I can tell you 100% effective against severe COVID. Didn't say against transmission of severe COVID. You see how they played that game? That way they can say, like, I never said that. I never said you can't come at me. You can't sue me. They say initially a small number of so-called breakthrough infections were reported. But by late 2021, it had become clear the vaccinated were still catching and spreading the virus. Now that is an important note. Breakthrough infections. That's what they called it, breakthrough. That implies the virus broke through. What could it have broken through? Something doesn't add up. It's very, very strange, everything we're seeing. From news.com.au, January 21st, 2022, Israeli officials were surprised and disappointed vaccines did not stop transmission. One of Israel's top vaccine advisors has revealed he and his colleagues were surprised and disappointed by one element of the jab rollout. Well, you have it there. Now, over at YouTube, transmission misinformation. You cannot post content that promotes transmission information that contradicts local health authorities or the World Health Organization. Content that claims that COVID-19 is not caused by a viral infection. Silly, we know it is. Content that claims that COVID-19 is not contagious. It's contagious. Content that claims that COVID-19 cannot spread in certain climates and geographies. I've never heard that, actually. My understanding is it can spread everywhere. Content that claims that any group or individual has immunity to the virus or cannot transmit the virus. Okay, well, where's the vaccine thing? Where's the thing saying you can't claim? That used to be one of their rules. They got rid of it. There's a bunch of other, weird things in there. Claims that any vaccine causes contraction of COVID-19. I don't know, man. I'm not a doctor. Don't no at-home remedies. Claims that approved COVID-19 vaccine will cause death, infertility, miscarriage, autism, or contraction of other infectious diseases. Sure. I don't know. YouTube, you can do whatever you want with your rules. James Smith, he's got this viral tweet going around. 3 times #1 Sunday Times bestselling author, the James Smith podcast. Shout out to James Smith. He says, so it turns out get vaccinated to save other people was a farce. I think I owe a lot of people an apology. I genuinely thought I could trust the experts. I'm very disappointed to have been hoodwinked by the propaganda of 2020. One person says, I'm a bit confused. I don't believe they ever said they could stop transmission. They called them breakthrough infections.
You're okay. You're not.
Breakthrough infections, implying if you were vaccinated, it was a breakthrough if you ended up getting sick. Now, here's a compilation of videos. Here's one, July 21st, 2021.
You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Vaccines prevent getting infected, prevent getting sick, prevent your hospitalization.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real-world data.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person. A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else.
Hey, they were all wrong about that stuff. That's not even in the YouTube rules anymore. Now, these are all old videos. And I think it's fair to point out, 1, people are allowed to learn and change their opinions. 2, people make mistakes. And 3, a lot of big companies had a lot of money to make by getting government contracts that were guaranteed. So I don't know. I don't know about any conspiracies. I don't know what happened behind the scenes. It could be as simple as these people genuinely thought it. Take a look at this over at the CDC. Let me see. Here we go. Preparing for your vaccine, cdc.gov. Why should I get vaccinated if I might get COVID-19 anyway? COVID-19 vaccination significantly lowers your risk of severe illness, hospitalization, and death if you get infected. Compared to people who are up to date with their COVID-19 vaccinations, unvaccinated people are more likely to get COVID-19, much more likely to be hospitalized with COVID-19, and much more likely to die from COVID-19. Like all vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines are not 100% effective at preventing infection. Some people who are up to date with their COVID-19 vaccinations will get COVID-19 breakthrough infection. However, staying up to date with your COVID-19 vaccinations means that you are less likely to have a breakthrough infection. And if you do get sick, you are less likely to get severely ill or die. Staying up to date with COVID-19 vaccination also means you are less likely to spread the disease to others and increase your protection against new variants of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. Well, I believe I'll let the CDC speak for themselves. I am not a government official who knows better than any scientist. I can criticize Dr. Fauci for flip-flopping and shattering confidence in the American people. For some reason, some people maintained it. But I am not a scientist. I can only point out that right now, the narrative, or I should say the official advisement from the CDC, seemingly contradicts what the news is saying right now. So we'll see, I suppose. But I also want to highlight this from BMJ. BMJ is a NewsGuard certified 100 out of 100, the British Medical Association journal. What do we know about COVID vaccines and preventing transmission? They say vaccines that work against SARS-CoV-2 have helped change the course of the pandemic by reducing illness and hospital admissions. But Chris Stokel-Walker asks what we know about the impact on preventing transmission. They say the range of vaccines developed, blah, 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 blah. Much of the focus on research has been on the effectiveness in preventing infection, illness, and hospital admission. What is less well measured is the impact of vaccination on preventing onward transmission. They say a subsequent study conducted later in the course of the pandemic, when the Delta variant was dominant, showed vaccines had a less pronounced effect on denting onward transmission, but were still effective. Well, okay. They say vaccines aren't preventing onward transmission by reducing the viral load. Most studies show if you got an infection after vaccination, compare with someone who got an infection without a vaccine, you are pretty much shedding roughly the same amount of virus, said Paul Hunter, professor in medicine at the University of East Anglia. In one study, sponsored by the U.S. Center for CDC, found no difference in infectious virus titer, pronouncing that wrong, between groups who had been vaccinated and had not. Instead, it's the principle that the UKHSA identified above. If you don't get infected in the first place thanks to a vaccine, you can't spread it. Once you're infected, you still can. Although what we know about the window when you're most likely to transmit, blah, blah, blah. So it seems there's a lot of wishy-washy, contradictory information. And I can't tell you what for. I can only tell you that this Pfizer exec is saying they didn't know about transmission. Technically said immunization, so take it for what it is. California makes it illegal for doctors to disagree with politicians. Okay, well, welcome to the brave new world, my friends. They say conformity of thought is now required. PayPal introduced their $2,500 fine that we get after a firestorm of criticism, we understand. But California physicians had no such relief. Governor Gavin Newsom recently signed California Assembly Bill 2098, making it the first state to attempt to censor what physicians can say about COVID-19 to their patients. It is dangerous and likely unconstitutional. The statute instructs that it shall constitute unprofessional conduct for a physician and surgeon to disseminate misinformation or disinformation related to COVID-19, including false or misleading information regarding the nature and risks of the virus, its prevention and treatment, and the development, safety, and effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines. Let me just bring it all together for you. And I'll say it again for the millionth time. I have no idea. I am no doctor. I am no scientist. I could not tell you one way or the other. I can only tell you this. As a layman, when it comes to those issues, I have no idea what's going on. A Pfizer exec comes out and says they were asked about transmission, but said they didn't know about immunization. The reporting is that they misspoke and that they didn't know about stopping transmission. But this is what everybody was saying. Slow the spread, do it for others, all of that stuff. Now, the argument from the CDC is still that you are less likely to get it if you are vaccinated, and thus you'll be less likely to spread it. I actually want to point out, if the vaccine does reduce severity, you will get better faster. There's a smaller window for infecting others. I suppose you could argue in that capacity the vaccine does reduce transmission. Is that what they're trying to say? I can only tell you this. It's a mess. It's a complete mess. First, people are going to want to believe what caters to their worldview. This is why I don't like you've got people who hate the vaccines. You've got people who love the vaccines. And I'm just like, just everybody, okay, look, I'm about personal freedom, liberty, all that stuff. So I certainly don't like the vax mandates, and I don't like the zealous get the vaccine no matter what people. There are people who just adamantly oppose the vaccine no matter what. And I'm also like, well, you're allowed to, so I'm not mad about that because you're not forcing me to do anything I don't want to do. But I'm still just like, check your biases, okay? People are going to see this story and they're going to say, this proves it. Well, it proves this woman may not know what she's talking about. It's a statement from a Pfizer executive, and that's very, very important. And that's at an inquiry with a member of European Parliament. That is serious. I take that evidence seriously. The fact that YouTube changed their rules and a bunch of news outlets are now coming out and changing what they had said initially, I think that says a lot. But I think ultimately I can only say this. Your health, what is important for you, has been proven over and over again over the past few years to be an issue for you and your doctor, and not the government, and not the media, and not big pharmaceutical companies. You should talk to a trusted medical professional. You realize there are many doctors who are Trump supporters. There are many doctors who don't like big pharma. See, what really grinds my gears is when people are like, Tim, doctors don't know what they're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you think every single doctor is just like a pro-Pfizer Democrat march? No. If your doctor is saying that stuff to you, you need a different doctor. Okay? If your doctor gives you advice, I suggest you take it. If the doctor can't tell you about modern developments, recent developments, I suggest you find a doctor you do trust. That's really that simple. This stuff freaks me out. It's the only thing I can really say. It's scandalous that this Pfizer exec said this. Scandalous. That's one way to put it. What does it prove? Man, I got no idea. Because they say a whole lot of things and there's a whole lot of crazy people. She's not a doctor. What does she know? Is she a scientist? No, she's a business person. Maybe you got to be a scientist. What do I know? I can only tell you this. YouTube's rules are based on conjecture and who knows what. They change them all the time and they don't issue notice when they do. So how are we supposed to know? If YouTube tells us we can't talk about the latest developments in what's happening, how is anyone supposed to be adequately informed? When a NewsGuard certified source comes out and says Pfizer exec admits they didn't know about transmission and it's shocking and criminal, and we can't report the news because of YouTube's rules, then I think YouTube should be responsible. That's on them. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.